Um, like Brittany said, my name's Cameron Owen. I am one of our senior education and career counselors with the Center for College Planning as part of the NEAF network. We're happy to partner with Portsmouth along with all of the public New Hampshire schools and a handful of private schools to work with New Hampshire families on the planning and paying for college and different career paths that students are embarking on. Tonight, we're going to cover the college application process for juniors heading into their senior year. So we're going to focus a lot on admissions, the different ways to apply, how our office approaches the college search process, and what to be thinking about not only as a student, but as a parent as well. So although we are out in the community a lot doing these presentations during the evening, either in person or virtually, a lot of the day-to-day things that we do are individual counseling appointments with our New Hampshire students and families. We offer those both in person and virtually. We are located in Concord, so we're just under an hour from you guys. We are in our office on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and our virtual appointments are offered Monday through Friday. On the right-hand side of your screen, you're seeing a couple different examples of different appointment types that we offer. By and large, our most popular appointment is probably our FAFSA filing, where we sit down with families and help them fill out the FAFSA application. Right now, we're working a lot with high school seniors in the reviewing of their financial aid offers. So fast forward a year from now, we're going to be in that time frame for you guys as well. So as your students get into the spring of their senior year, hopefully we're going to start to see a lot of acceptance letters come in, and then ultimately those financial aid offers, all the money that the schools have offered you that ultimately get down to what it's going to cost you to go to those schools. We sit down with families and we go through those step by step and figure out, what is the money that you've been awarded, what do you need to pay back, and what do you do not, and ultimately what is going to be your out-of-pocket expense. For juniors, we find that our exploring options for after high school or our career and aptitude exploration are the two most popular appointments for high school juniors, where we're really diving a little bit deeper into the search process on an individual basis, where we'll reference some search engine tools that we have access to that we use with families through that search process as well. So to make those appointments, you can go right to our website or you can follow the link on your screen. You could also give us a call to make an appointment. All of our services are completely free, so you wouldn't need to pay a fee to meet with anyone on our team, as well as attending these webinars are also free as well. So again, our goal is to make this process as easy as possible for students and families. So we'll jump right in. Again, if you guys have questions, let me know. But we're going to start with the college search process. So as we are embarking on this journey kind of at the exploration phase, we find that students, or at least for me, I want students to cast as big of a net as possible when searching for schools, right? We're still in that introductory phase of looking for schools and what we're really looking to get out of our college experience. So we find that, these are very popular categories to kind of guide you through that process in determining what's going to be a best fit institution for you. And that might look different from student to student because this process is such an individualized journey that although students are going to collaborate with their friends and we encourage that, we want to make sure that we're not losing the aspect of we need to figure this out for ourselves, right? Everyone cannot go to the same school, and we want to make sure we're finding a good fit for you. And with over 4,000 schools in the United States to choose from, you might find that multiple schools end up on that list of being the best fit for you. So then we have to figure out what are some things that we're not willing to, part with in that college experience. Before we can get to there, we really start with some of these categories, starting with location. Probably the most popular category that students kind of gravitate towards initially is where is the school located, right? Do we want to be close to home? Are we looking to venture a little bit further away, have a different experience than we did in high school? These are all things to be thinking about in terms of location. Do we prefer the city? Do we prefer more of the country life. These are things that students want to be thinking about. The size of a school, this can be determined by the student body, but it can also be more specific into the class size, right? We want to think to ourselves, what is the best learning style for me? Are we okay with lectures with 300 plus people, or do we really want that small classroom environment? The size of the school in terms of student body doesn't necessarily dictate how every single class size will be as well. So that's important to recognize. Even at these larger universities, you still could find that you're in a smaller, more intimate classroom setting as you start to get involved in your major, which ultimately is probably one of those top choices as well in determining, how to search for schools. Some students might know exactly what they want to study, which could really help narrow their college search down tremendously. Some students might not have such a concrete idea, so you can cast a little bit of a wider net with different areas of what you're looking to major in. Academic opportunities, what we're really focusing on here is, are you looking to do a lot of research? Are you looking for internships or co-ops? Because every school is going to look a little bit differently in those categories. And then sticking with academics, really for students that have IEPs or 504s, what type of academic services are available at these institutions? Specifically looking at tutoring, professor office hours, right? Those are going to look different at a lot of different schools. Not all tutoring services are free. And the most important thing to recognize is that IEPs and 504 plans do not carry over into college academics, right? So if students do have an IEP or a 504 plan at Portsmouth, they would need to self-identify that through their college application process. It is not mandatory that you do so, but if you want the academic services at that particular school to know that you might need some additional accommodations, admissions is going to be that bridge for you to make that connection. So all sorts of different things. The last one I'll kind of touch on is the cost. We find that the discussion around how much it is going to cost you to go to school doesn't happen until students have already applied, been accepted. You're starting to really, really fall in love with these schools. And then we have the discussion about what can we really afford. We really encourage families to have that conversation, early on in this process. That way it could guide you into searching for schools. What is going to be affordable for your family and what ultimately is not. That can really help narrow down that list. Instead of using Google, right, there's different search engine tools that you can really benefit from, so we'll touch on those in our next slide. But as you work through those different categories of location, size, major, academic services, we really want to start asking yourself, what are you really looking to get out of your college experience? Who do you want to learn from? I love the idea of asking yourself about what your non-negotiables are, right? Cast that wide net and then start to really focus in on what are you really not willing to sacrifice in terms of your college experience. And you'll start to see that some of those schools might start to come off of your list as you start to get to know them a little bit more and do a little bit more research. The stage that we're in right now is a lot of that online research. Your junior year of high school is a great opportunity to start exploring the idea of actually going out and visiting some schools. Maybe some of you have already started that college visit process. But if you haven't, and if you're looking to do more online research, we encourage you to use different search engine tools. Some schools have access to Naviance or SCORE. We have access to the College Board. More specifically, we use a program called Big Future. This is available to all students nationwide. Students can use their College Board account to save their different searched schools. That way you're not starting from scratch every time. For students, that have a College Board account already, we do encourage you to sign in to that account when you're using Big Future. The idea of this search engine tool is to take those different categories that we just talked about and start to fill those out for what you're looking for. And it takes that list of about 4,000 schools and it starts to narrow it down for you in determining what schools meet the criteria in which you've researched. And you can play around with that as much as you want, be as specific or as vague as you feel like doing your research for. But the more specific you are, the more that list is going to get narrowed down to. So sometimes it's helpful to start with being as broad or as vague as possible. And then as you start to, dwindle that list down, or if you're looking for different aspects in your college experience, start to add more things to that search, and you'll find that that list gets smaller. But this is a great tool to figure out kind of where you stand in terms of a student profile for that particular institution. You'll see things on here like average GPAs, average test scores for the applicants that are applying to these institutions. You'll see popular percentages of popular majors. So you can kind of see if your major of your choice is super popular, that might mean that it's a very competitive program to get into. So these are some things to be thinking about as you're searching for these schools. And again, you can save your searches as you go. You can add and subtract schools so long as you are signed in to your College Board account. Your school counselor is obviously, a tremendous resource that's made available to your students on a more daily basis. This is also not their first rodeo. So they've helped so many students through this application process. And they also have a pretty good idea of the success rate for Portsmouth High School students, right? They're working with these students every single day. This is also a person that's going to be writing letters of recommendation for students. So having that connection with Miss Lynn and her office is super valuable. Brittany, I don't know if you want to jump in and add anything here. I know this is kind of, I want your time to shine right here.
It's a little bit different at Portsmouth, which is why I just wanted to kind of step in. So Ms. Rolinski is the junior counselor. For those that don't know, that's your school counselor. We do have Naviance, and she did meet with half of the junior class in the Little Theater during Flex to go through Naviance and the college search tools available to you guys before Christmas break. She'll be doing the other half in the next couple of weeks. We got kind of delayed because of finals and then course registration and all of that stuff. So she'll be doing the other half if you haven't done it already in the next few weeks. But that's the, beginning pieces. I do all the junior meetings for actual like the college search process and beginning that process. And me and Ms. Rolinski work really closely together over the next year to kind of work on the process together. But I do everything college related. So if you have questions on college, if you have questions on what schools you should be looking at, if you haven't set up a junior meeting yet, like that stuff is all me. Mr. Lindsay is going to be spending her entire fall writing letters of recommendation. So we break it out so that I can help you guys step by step through the college process, and she can be writing letters of rec and doing your scheduling. So those are kind of like, and more of the social, emotional, mental health piece of things. So those are kind of like the differences in terms of like what we do. I will say Flex is a big thing. And I know as seniors, you guys all are going to be looking forward to not having to be there for Flex, but that is a time that we can help you guys without you missing classes. So please, when you get off campus next year, just don't take it as like hey, I'm done. Like I'm not coming in for Flex anymore. That is a really big time for us to be able to meet with you guys in small groups and as individual meetings to get a lot of more individualized stuff done without you missing big chunks of class time. So I'll say kind of a bigger piece to that and scheduling and all that at the end, but I just wanted to kind of tell you what our breakout was for how we handle things.
Cool. Thanks, Brittany. All right, as we progress through the research phase of searching for schools, now is the time to, kind of having a little bit more face time with these particular institutions. Starting really with the opportunity to introduce yourself to these schools through college fairs or through campus visits, right? So you'll start to see invitations to college fairs, both locally, maybe at your high school, and regionally as well. And these are great opportunities for not only parents, but, really for students to get an idea of who their admissions counselor is going to be and start to get more, tangible resources from the institutions. A lot of them will bring a lot of great material for students to take with them and look over once they get home. And it's also a good opportunity for that admissions counselor really to get to know how interested you are in their particular school. Students will sometimes hear this term demonstrated interest as they go through the application process. As soon as students kind of give their information over to the college, they're starting to build a profile profile with that school. And the interactions that you have with the admissions office, with athletics, with financial aid, these are things that oftentimes can be tracked by those schools, and they can see how involved you are with their particular campus. Some schools really, love the idea of demonstrated interest. Some schools might not care. But if you hear that term, it means that those schools are really trying to gauge how interactive are you being with their office, because it gives them a better idea of how interested you are in actually attending that school. The admissions counselor that you meet, whether it be at a high school visit, a college fair, on a campus tour, that person 9 times out of 10 is going to be the person that reviews the student's application. Right, they're here in New Hampshire. They're coming to Portsmouth High School. They're coming to UNH for a regional college fair to recruit New Hampshire students. So eventually, when your application hits their desk, they are the ones that are reviewing that. They are making the decision on whether or not you're accepted, waitlisted, denied. What type of scholarships are you getting? It's a great person to kind of have a relationship with. And the last thing that you want is for them to kind of see your name for the first time when their application hits their desk. Now, for some schools, that might be kind of what it is. If we're looking at schools that are really larger in size, we think of, Northeastern, BU, BC, very popular large institutions here in New England. They receive 40, 50,000 applications per year, right? Demonstrated interest might not be as big of a thing for them. But if you're looking at schools that are a little bit smaller, private institutions, that might go a little bit further. So think about those things as you're attending college fairs. Come prepared as well, right? Do figure out what schools are attending the college fair and, come with some questions for them. Don't kind of just go into it blindly. The more prepared you can be for that interaction with that admissions counselor, the better, because they can see, how interested you are in that particular school. But as you progress through each of these, I find it invaluable when you can get out and visit some of these schools, right? Again, junior year is a very popular time for students to be stepping foot on campus. I feel that it could honestly be a make or break for you determining whether or not you want to even apply or not. I've worked with many students over my 6 years here at NEIF that have developed a college list, and they've gone out and visited some of these schools, and by the time they get back, they realized it wasn't for them. It just wasn't going to be a good fit. The campus was either too overwhelming or underwhelming. There were certain things that just stuck out to them that they weren't able to find, on a college's website. So if you have the opportunity, take the time, go see these schools in person. A lot of students that are in their freshman and sophomore years, right, that opportunity was taken away from them as seniors, right? COVID did not allow them to visit campuses, unfortunately. So now that campuses are open, they're encouraging students to come. A lot of schools will also give scholarship dollars for visiting campus as well. So keep that in mind. We're again in that phase of reviewing financial aid offer letters, and I've seen a large number of schools have a campus visit scholarship on their financial aid offer. So keep that in mind as well. As we get to that phase of starting to build your college list, now we've gone through the exploration phase, we've done our research, we're getting ready for that start of our senior year, and we're starting to figure out where we're actually going to apply. We want students to be intentional when building their college list. We take an approach in our office, we call it a 2-2-2 approach. And that's really to stay organized through this application journey. And we really want to make sure that the schools that students are applying to don't really look the same on paper. Right, we want to make sure that there is some variety in the schools that students are applying to, whether it be academic related. So if it's a safety school or a probable school versus a target school versus a reach school, we do want to see some flexibility in each of those categories, right? We want to make sure that students are looking at schools that we have a high probability of getting into, high chance of some scholarship dollars. We would consider that a safety school. Target schools we consider as kind of right in line with what their average academic profile is for applicants would be a target school. And reach schools, we would identify that as, you're slightly below the average of what that institution is seeing year after year in terms of academics. So we do like to see a couple schools in each of those categories. Kind of the token question that we get every year is, how many schools would you recommend students apply to? I think you're going to get a different answer from everyone that you talk to that kind of does this on a daily basis. For me specifically, I say let's keep it under 10. For a couple of reasons. One, because I think if you've done enough research and you've really taken the time to visit schools, 10 schools is a lot of schools to be applying to. And it means that if we're getting into a lot of these schools, that's going to be 10 different financial aid offers that we're going to have to review, and they're all going to look different, right? So by the time we've applied to schools and by the time you get accepted, some of those schools might have already fallen off of your list based off of more research or more visits that you've done. So if we're applying to more than 10, I think we just need to be a little bit more intentional, figure out, a little bit more, do a little bit more research on what we're looking for. Now, with that being said, if a student comes to me and says, I have a solid list of 15 schools, then that's great. I always remind students, this is your journey. It's not mine. It's not my colleagues. It's your student's journey. If that's what they're looking to do, if that's how many schools they want to apply to, that's their choice, right? So the other big reason why I say keep it under 10 is for financial aid purposes. When we're filling out FAFSA, which is the federal application for student aid, you can only list up to 10 schools per submission. So if we have more than 10 schools, you're going to need to submit that FAFSA application more than once. Not impossible, not the end of the world, but it just means an extra step that you'll have to remember to do after you submit it the first time, because you can only list up to 10. We also want you to consider the type of financial aid that's offered at these schools. We often think of financial aid as only being need-based, but we have to remember that scholarships are also a form of financial aid. It's just coming from a different department. So when we're researching these schools and you're on campus and we're talking with admissions, a great question that students should be asking is, do they offer both need-based money and merit-based aid? So that's where your scholarships come into play. Not all schools offer merit aid. The majority of them will, but we do have a small handful of schools throughout the country that only offer need-based aid through the FAFSA process. Here in New Hampshire, Dartmouth would be an example of a school that only offers need-based aid. So there is no scholarship component to the admissions process. So often a question that doesn't get asked often, but we do encourage families to be asking what type of financial aid is being offered at that school, because we could be a really strong student academically graduating from Portsmouth, but if that school doesn't offer merit aid, you're not going to receive a scholarship from them. And that could play a huge factor in the overall cost to attend that particular school if they're not offering need-based aid. So just something to keep in mind. Once we've built our list and we're getting ready to apply to school, the most important thing we say every year, especially for students, is keeping track of your deadlines, right? Deadlines is what kind of runs this world for admissions and for financial aid. We want to make sure we're keeping track of both, application deadlines and financial aid. They do kind of go hand in hand. Application deadlines for admission are usually a little bit sooner, where financial aid will follow that. But the earlier we apply for admission, the earlier our financial aid deadline is going to be as well. So you want to make sure that we're identifying when is the application deadline, when is my FAFSA deadline, and then if a school requires what's called the CSS profile, when is that deadline as well. So whatever method that works for you in terms of organization, if it works for you, it works for us, right? In the confirmation email that you guys received for the webinar, you would have received a digital version of our Admissions Insider, one of the more popular publications that we write every year. Towards the back of that booklet, we've given you kind of a guide to stay organized, more of like an Excel spreadsheet type of vibe. But whatever works for you is what's going to be most important. Deadlines will not look the same for all schools. So that's why it can get a little bit tricky, where if we're applying to, 5 to 10 schools, you could find that maybe a couple of them have the same deadline, and then you'll find, a couple more might have a different one. So really just keeping track of that. And it really comes down to how we're applying. These are the different options that are available to students in determining how we are going to apply to school. And you'll notice that starting from the top and working our way down, it starts with the least restrictive way of applying to school down to early decision, which is the most restrictive way, or what we call binding. So starting with rolling admission, you see this a lot with our community college here in New Hampshire. There's some four-year schools that will have it, but more popularly, it's going to be community college, where they are consistently reviewing applications first come, first serve. They're going to review them as they're received, as long as the application is complete, right? So sending in transcripts, letters of recommendation, your essay. Some schools require those, some schools don't. But if it's rolling admission, if you've applied rolling admission, schools will continue to review applications until their freshman class has been met. And they'll review those as they are received. So our 7 community colleges are very popular with rolling admission. Regular admission, this is where you're going to start to get into some deadlines. So regular admission typically happens after January 1st. Usually once your first semester of your senior year has been completed, you're going to start to see some regular admission deadlines. January 1st, January 15th, February 1st are very popular regular admission deadlines. So students really want to start to think about what is the best option for you, what's going to suit you the best in determining when should we apply. If you're a student that's in your senior year that is really focused on getting that GPA up to where you want it to be, because it's not where we want it to be at when we're applying to school in November or December, that might sway you towards applying regular admission, because by the time your first semester is over, maybe your GPA looks a little bit better. So keep that in mind. Regular admission is typically after January 1st. Early action, this is probably, in my opinion, the most popular way that students are applying to school over the past couple of years. It does demonstrate some stronger interest. Application deadlines are usually right around November and into December. So you're going to hear November 15th, December 1st, December 15th is very popular early action deadlines. Again, every school could have a different early action deadline, but know that it is going to be earlier on in the fall of your senior year, typically around the end of Q1 of your senior year. So just after Halloween is usually when these deadlines are going to start to approach. For students that are looking into a little bit more competitive institutions, for those that are applying to competitive majors, it's always best to be applying early because they are just more competitive, a lot more applicants within the early action pool. But again, you want to make sure you're asking yourself, does it suit me the best, right? Does it make sense for me to be applying early? A little bit of a newer way to apply to schools, not very popular among a lot, but we are seeing it kind of trickle out there, is restrictive early action. Very similar to just regular early action, where they're both non-binding. The difference is that with restrictive early action, you can only apply to one school, restrictive early action, and you have to wait until that decision comes in before applying to any others. Restrictive early action allows you to receive a decision without committing to that particular school. It demonstrates the most amount of interest, just below early decision. Again, you're not going to see this much at a lot of the schools that students are, more popularly looking into. We have seen this, a little bit at more competitive institutions, but not much, throughout the United States. But we did want to include this on here just in case you see that term and what it really means. Early decision, this is the most restrictive way of applying, and we would refer to that as binding. Early decision has pros and cons depending on which way you want to look at it, but you can only apply to one school early decision. All your other applications would need to be regular admission, because if you are getting into your early decision school, you are obligated to attend that school for your freshman year. Typically with early decision students, the student the parent and a school counselor are typically signing a document that agrees and understands, the implications of applying early decision, and understands that if you are accepted, you're saying that, I'm going to be here in the fall. The pros to applying early decision for the institutions that offer that as an option: much higher acceptance rate with early decision students. It's a very popular way for a lot of competitive institutions for students to be applying to. If you're looking into a very popular program that has limited spots, I think of nursing, engineering, architecture, these popular programs, your only option might be early decision, right? If it's that competitive of a program, if you want to guarantee your spot, you might have to apply early decision to be considered for that program. The cons to early decision is that you're kind of, in some aspects, putting all of your eggs in one basket, and you're really making that commitment to that institution before knowing what the financial aid is going to look like, because you're not going to receive that prior to getting accepted, right? You're going to receive your admissions decision, and then you kind of have to just live with what they offer you for financial aid. So if we are thinking of applying early decision, it is important to have that conversation at the dinner table about what is going to be affordable for you and your family, right? So if early decision is not a good avenue for you, if you know that financial aid is going to play a significant factor in ultimately where the student goes to school, we might want to think about not applying early decision, because again, it is binding. Talk with admissions. Some schools are a little bit more lenient than others when it comes to getting out of that early decision commitment, if the financial aid, is just simply not going to work for you and your family. At the end of the day, there's not going to be someone that's coming knocking on your door and taking a student off to the school. But if you are applying early decision, you might be signing a document that you're agreeing to what these terms mean. So just keep that in mind. As we get down to how we're going to apply to school, there's really 3 different ways we can apply. Most popular is the Common App. This is what majority, I would say, 99% of our students are using to apply to school. That opens on August 1st. There's a lot of things that we can be doing over the summer to kind of get a head start on your application process, a lot of which is demographic information for both the student and the parents in the household. So I would encourage students to start that before they start their senior year. We're kind of running right into the start of your senior year when we get into August. So it's kind of important to get that started early. Majority of schools are going to accept the Common App. You may hear of a application called the Coalition application. Not very popular here on the East Coast, but pretty popular out on the West Coast. So for students that are looking into California schools, you might find that you might have to fill out a Coalition application. Opens the same time, but you can, as you can see, utilized by a much lesser amount of colleges. And then some schools might have their own application, right? They're oftentimes found on the college's website. They may waive application fees or not have an application fee. We see that with Plymouth State here in New Hampshire, where on the Common App, they have an application fee, where if you use their Panther application, which is their college one, their college-specific app, it's free to apply. So keep an eye out for those. If you're looking to save a little bit of money in terms of application fees, you might find that colleges have their own. What we're submitting along with the application is obviously, high school transcript is going to be the most popular and probably the most important part of your application, really the focal point for admissions to determine whether or not a student is going to be accepted. SAT scores, we'll touch on those on the next slide. Letters of recommendation. Most schools will require at least 2, sometimes 3, oftentimes 1 from a school counselor and then 1 from a teacher. Could also be a coach, your employer, anyone that's non-family has the ability to write a letter of recommendation, but colleges normally like to see at least 2 coming from different people from your high school. Extracurricular activities, students can list up to 10 different activities or clubs, sports that they've been involved in throughout their 4 years of high school. By no means do you have to list 10, but you are given 10 spots to fill. If you have more than 10 or if you have up to 10. But again, sometimes, we see students filling out all 10 because they feel like they need to. But it's more important for admissions to see, what are you involved in and how committed are you to the things that you are involved in? I think that's what stood out to me when I worked in admissions was if there was only a couple things on your list, but you were involved in them for all 4 years of high school, that stood out to me a little bit more than having 10 things on there that you only committed a year of time to, right? So think about that. Students should be thinking about that as they develop that list. You don't need to fill all 10 spots if you don't feel like you need to. And then finally is your college essay. So this is written within the Common Application. There's 7 different prompts for students to choose from in which they would be writing, something about themselves. It's 650 words. We do a lot of summer essay writing workshops that I'll touch on towards the end of our presentation, but we do find that the college essay is often the most stressful aspect of the application process for students, and often the thing that is left to the last minute, which we really encourage students not to be doing. So we'll talk about some of the workshops that we offer over the summer when it comes to your essay. For standardized testing, we have seen a lot of schools go test optional, where you can find a complete list of those schools is fairtest.org. You'll find a whole comprehensive list of all the schools throughout the country that are test optional in terms of admission requirements. So it is truly up to the student to decide whether or not you want to submit your test scores. Keep in mind that if a school is test optional, the program that you're interested in might not be. So again, if we think about those competitive majors that students might be interested in, the school itself might be test optional, but your engineering program might not be if you want to be considered for scholarships. So again, that's where your relationship with the admissions counselor is going to come in to be asking those questions. But if you do see them on that list of test optional, you get to decide. If they're test blind, you could submit your scores. They're not going to be considered. If they're test blind, will have no impact on your admissions decision, whether or not you submit them or if you don't, because they're not going to look at them. And then test flexible is, they're accepting, SAT, ACT, AP scores, IB courses. Important to recognize that not all institutions are accepting all different types of tests. So if they are test flexible, make sure you identify what different tests are they going to accept, what test scores. But again, fairtest.org is where you'll see that complete list for those test optional schools. In addition to the essential elements of your application, these are some things that we want you to consider if you fall into these categories, right? So for students that are looking into any performing arts or music, you might find that there is an audition requirement in terms of admissions. For those that are looking at, architecture, graphic, or interior design, you may have a photography would also fall into this category. You might find that they might want a portfolio of your work to be submitted along with your application. And then for those that are student athletes, right? If you're looking to plan, if you're planning on playing your sport at the Division I or the Division II level, we recommend that you get registered with the NCAA Eligibility Center. This is especially important for those that are being recruited Division I or Division II, and there's a potential to receive athletic aid or an athletic scholarship. You have to be registered with the NCAA to receive an athletic scholarship and to sign a national letter of intent. You can do that right on the NCAA website. There is a fee associated with registering. But if you are looking D1 or D2, this is especially important to make sure that you academically qualify to participate in your sport as a first-year student. There are specific requirements set by the NCAA, often which mirror your graduation for high school requirements. But if you're not registered, you might not be eligible to play. For students that are looking at Division III, you are not required to register with the NCAA. They do have a free version. It's called a profile page, but if you are needing to register, that is a certification account, and that's where the fee is associated with that. All right, so wrapping up with a couple things left on our agenda, Destination College. So this is an event that is coming up in a couple weeks. It's the largest event that we hold as an organization, and it is specifically for high school juniors and their families. Destination College is our college planning event that we do every year on the campus of a New Hampshire institution. This year, we're happy to be back at Plymouth State on Saturday, March 25th. The event itself runs from 8:30 to 2. You'll see that we have a variety of different workshops that students and parents can attend, and we end the day with a college fair. So this is something that we really highly recommend high school juniors and their families to be signing up for. It's a free event, so we don't charge anyone to attend this. And you'll have the opportunity to hear from different guest speakers, all sorts of different workshops. You name it, we probably have a workshop for it. If you go to destinationcollege.org, you'll see a complete list of all the workshops along with a description of what that workshop is going to be. We also have a list of all the colleges that have registered for the college fair. Right now we're about 60 schools. So they'll be on the campus from about 12 to 2, and space is limited, right? So we have, as of this morning, we have 580 registrants so far. So it's a very popular event that we do. We'd love to see our Seacoast schools represented there as well. So if this is of interest to you guys, registration is still open. You can follow the QR code or go right to destinationcollege.org, and you can register right online, and you'll pick the workshops that you want to attend right when you register. So we'd love to see you guys there. And then lastly is the summer programming that we offer. Like I mentioned in a previous slide, probably the most popular summer workshop that we do is our college essay writing for rising high school seniors. These are oftentimes happening. We usually hold them 2 weeks in July and then 2 weeks in August. Those dates have not been set yet, but keep an eye out on our neef.org website for those dates. Registration will be required for those. And again, space is limited for that because we hold them in our Concord office. So if you feel like you as a student are really going to benefit from that, you might find that you're not the greatest, essay writer. This could be a very overwhelming, part of your application process, or you could be someone that has an essay written and you want somebody to review it, right? You can sign up for these workshops and we're happy to have you come. Our staff, along with volunteers from our New Hampshire College and universities, will come down for the day. You're with us pretty much for the entire day, and we'll work with your essay. Whether you have something written or not, we're going to work with you from kind of start to finish. We won't have a completed essay done by the end of your workshop, but we're going to have the framework down to send you off with a good tangible resources to finish your essay. And then throughout the summer, we offer about 1 to 2 webinars statewide throughout each month, where we're talking about all sorts of different topics surrounding admissions, financial aid, paying for school, early college planning, all sorts of different things. So keep an eye out for those. Those are typically virtual on Zoom, so there's no travel component to attending them, but all this will be living right on our website. We got through this whole thing and we might be sitting here thinking, well, I don't know what I want to study. I don't know where to start. I don't know what direction to take. Come meet with us. We encourage students that are unsure of where their path is looking to go. We've partnered with a program called U-Science, which is there to explore and identify different students' strengths and skills. We're also looking into aptitudes. So what are students naturally talented at? And matching those different interests and aptitudes up with a good career path. And ultimately what it identifies is a career path that fits the results of this test, and then what is the education requirements for those different career fields. At the end of the day, we might need 2 years of school, 4 years of school, 8 years of school, right? Not every career path requires the same amount of education. And we want students to recognize that. So if we are a student that is a little unsure of what direction they want to go into, you can make an appointment with us to take this U-Science assessment, and then you'll meet with us after to go over the results of that and have a little bit better direction of where to go. It also might just affirm what the student has been thinking, this whole time, and what it might open up doors of different possibilities of where they could go with that. So that is our career and aptitude exploration appointment that you'll see when we make that appointment. And then this is just our contact information, right? So if you have some one-off questions that you don't really feel like you need an appointment for, but you still want some of our guidance, you can email us. collegeplanning@neef.org goes to our entire team. And you could also call us with questions as well. We are very active on social media as well. So follow us. We have an extensive YouTube channel where we have a lot of previous webinars that we've done. So take a look at that. And then again, in the chat, we have that survey that you can fill out, that if you want to get added to our contact list, you'll start to receive different updates from us about all things admission and financial aid. So if that's something that you're of interest in, click on that link in the chat, and that'll bring you out right to that survey that you can fill out. It takes about a minute to do. So with that, I'll open it up for questions. Brittany, I know you had some things that you wanted to go over as well. So I'll keep an eye on Q&A, and you can go through the stuff that you want to talk about.
Perfect. Thanks, Cam. So just a couple of quick things that, again, are kind of more Portsmouth specific. First, if you have not set up a junior meeting yet, your student hasn't set up a junior meeting yet, that can still be done. I have a lot of appointments on my calendar. I have emailed out my calendar link a couple times. It's also posted on the Google Classroom for the class of 2024. So students can go right on there and sit with their parent or guardian and figure out a time that works best for both of them. Please don't go on and sign your student up for an appointment without talking to them, because what happens is inevitably they have a test or something at the time that you've signed them up. It happens all the time. So please make those appointments together or have the student make it. We are going to have some things coming up for the juniors for college exploration in the spring, and you guys will get more information about those in email coming up, but we are going to be doing a college fair at Portsmouth High in April. Sign-ups for the colleges are going on right now. We have about 60 schools signed up so far. So I'll be sending information out about that, but it's during the school day. So the students will be brought down there. They don't have to do anything to sign up. There's no nothing that they need to do. They'll be given all the opportunity to go down and meet with reps during that time. And then we also will be doing some college panel sessions in April and May that are going to be topic specific. I'm planning those right now. So those are going to be during Flex for the juniors. They'll be in the Little Theater. The dates and the topics for each one of those will be going out soon, so that students can flex in if they want to for those. And there'll be like 3 to 4 college admissions reps on each one. Some of them will be through Zoom, like the reps will be on Zoom projected in the Little Theater, just because the reps are further away and we didn't want to just limit it to local schools only. And then Cam kind of touched on the college reps coming to the schools. We do have usually about 150 schools college reps come in the fall. And I focus those on the seniors on purpose, which is why you haven't seen any information about them. So senior year, I start to send out an email every Friday to seniors that has like checklists, things they should be doing, upcoming events. It also will have the whole schedule for the following week. We usually have about 5 visits per day. And those are, the student has to go down to the guidance office and get a pass in the morning and have that pass signed by their teacher for whatever block it is that they're going to be missing part of. But those are focused on the seniors on purpose because I treat them more like a group interview, because as Cam said, they are most often the rep that's going to be reading the student's application. And I think the time is better spent being able to get some insight on their application, what they're looking for, questions about supplemental essays, things like that, than having the rep kind of go through what their brochures and stuff say. I don't think that that's a great use of time. So we really treat those more like interviews. I am always here to help, as I tell all of the juniors in their junior meetings. I cannot chase students because there's 250 of you, but I will help with anything that you need as long as the students come down and communicate that to me. So we do a lot of help sessions in the fall. In October and November, I will fill my calendar with 30-minute appointments again for students to be able to sign up, and we'll go through their entire Common App before they submit for the first time, including essays, supplementals, anything that they need to look at. So as long as they are reading their email, students are reading their emails, and they're checking to make sure that they're kind of going through everything that they need to. I can help with anything that they need in the college process, but they just need to kind of stay on top of that piece of things.
Cool. Thanks, Brittany. Couple of things have come in, so just want to address those. If the QR code for the U-Science wasn't working, if you follow the QR code on the screen that you're seeing now, that should bring you to our page where you can book an appointment. The appointment that you'd want to book if you're specifically looking to meet with us on U-Science is the career exploration appointment. It's probably listed at the bottom of our offerings, but that should get you to where you want to be as well. And then a question came in, can you apply early action or early decision to an honors program specifically? I think that would be probably school specific. Some admissions offices, based off of the application that your student submits, might say, hey, we're admitting you to our honors program, automatically. Some schools might say, if you want to be considered for our honors program, you need to apply early action or early decision. Again, I think it's a great question to be asking admissions as you start to do your research. Your admissions counselor is going to be your go-to person for a lot of those questions that directly impact how your student should be applying, because it's probably going to look different from school A to school B. But I've seen it both ways. I've seen students get admitted to the honors program just by simply applying to the school, but I've also seen that students need to apply to the honors program directly. And I would imagine that if it's an honors program, you would need to apply early. Great question. I don't currently see any questions in the Q&A as of now, so I'll finish just by saying we really encourage students and families to meet with us. We're a free service. We're an extension of your school counseling office. We're happy to help as much or as little as you guys need, and we can do that both in person and virtually. So keep an eye out for different presentations that we do throughout your students' academic year. The next time, I hope to either, have you guys on virtually or in person would probably be in the fall when we discuss financial aid, right? So tonight was focused on admissions. The next step is to focus on financial aid, which is a whole nother beast in itself. So we're not going to combine those two things tonight. So keep an eye out for a date from your school counseling office for that. We'll hold that in the fall. And look forward to seeing you guys there as well. So I'll stay on for a little bit, a couple minutes after if any questions come in. But again, thank you guys for spending about an hour of your time with me tonight. Hopefully you got some valuable information, and keep an eye out for the recording at a later date. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Cam.